Have you struggled reading C.S. Lewis's Abolition of Man? I know I did, especially in the beginning. It can feel confusing, almost like he's talking in circles, but once you get to the end, it starts to click. So let me try to simplify it for you in a way that actually makes sense. At its core, this book is about one big idea. What happens when we stop believing that good and evil are real? Lewis starts by criticizing a school textbook. Now, that might seem random, but it's actually the foundation of his whole argument. The textbook teaches students that when they say something like, "This waterfall is beautiful," or "This is noble," they're not describing something real. Instead, they're just expressing their feelings. In other words, the book is teaching, this isn't actually good, you just feel like it is. Lewis says that's a huge problem. Because if you teach people, especially kids, that all value is just emotion, then eventually they won't believe anything is truly good or truly bad. Everything becomes preference. Everything becomes opinion. And that leads to the next big idea. Lewis describes something he calls men without chests. To understand that, he breaks the human person into three parts. The head, our reason, our thinking. The belly, our desires and instincts. And the chest, our trained emotions, things like courage, honor, love of what is good. The chest is what connects what we know to what we do. It's what makes you not just understand that something is right, but actually feel that it matters. But if you grow up being taught that values aren't real, then that chest never develops properly. You might still think clearly. You might still have strong desires, but you won't feel the right things about good and evil. And that creates a dangerous kind of person. Someone who knows, but doesn't care. That's what Lewis means by men without chests. Then, Lewis zooms out and talks about something he calls the Tao. The Tao is basically the idea that throughout all human history, across all cultures, people have shared certain moral truths. Courage is good. Betrayal is wrong. Honoring your parents matters. Justice matters. Different cultures might apply these differently, but the core ideas show up again and again. Lewis argues that this isn't an accident. It's because morality is real, not invented, not just feelings, but something built into reality itself. Now here's where things get serious. Lewis says if we reject this idea, if we say morality is just subjective, then we don't actually become more free or more enlightened. We create a power vacuum. Because if there's no real good or bad, then the only thing left to decide what happens is power. That leads to what Lewis calls the conditioners. These are the people, scientists, leaders, educators, elites, who begin shaping humanity itself. Not just controlling behavior, but shaping what people believe, value, and even desire. And here's the scary part. If there's no objective morality, then the conditioners themselves have no standard to follow. So what guides them? Not truth. Not good or evil. Just their own impulses, their own preferences, their own desires. So now you have a small group of people with massive power, deciding what humanity should become, without any real moral foundation. And Lewis says, this is what we think is man conquering nature. But in reality, it's some humans conquering other humans. It's not freedom, it's control. And that leads to the title of the book, The Abolition of Man. Lewis is saying that if we go down this path, if we remove objective values and replace them with feelings and power, we don't improve humanity. We destroy it. We strip away what makes us truly human. Because real humanity isn't just thinking. It's not just feeling. It's being rightly ordered toward what is actually good. So the warning of the book is this. If we teach the next generation that nothing is truly good or evil, if we reduce everything to feelings, if we abandon objective truth, then we don't create a better world. We create a world where people are easier to manipulate, easier to control, and ultimately, less human. And that's what Lewis was trying to warn us about. So if the beginning of the book felt confusing, here's the simple takeaway. This isn't really a book about education. It's not even mainly about science. It's about whether good and evil are real. Because if they're not, then someone else gets to decide what they are. And that's a much more dangerous world than it first appears.